What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another video from Pink Tourmaline. And I am finally able to begin my video series on Empty the Cave. This is Howdie McCoskey's second book, Empty the Cave, subtitle Awaken the Spark. And I'm really glad he asked me to read this book before we met, because it's definitely has a lot of very unique elements, goes into a lot more details in terms of particular subjects. And yeah, it's fantastic so far. I've only read the first half of the book, so this is going to be part one of two parts going over this entire book. But I've extracted, once again, a ton of nuggets that have a lot of really, really valuable information. There's one section that I'm literally still trying to wrap my head around, and so maybe it'll become a little bit more clear as I'm making this video. But yeah, that's the section on emptiness and how that plays into the whole equation of liberation, because I'm not sure I fully understand it just yet, and I'd love to get some more clarification from Howdie. If we do ever get a chance to do an interview in the near term, that'd be fantastic. But anyways, without further ado, let's get into the mix for this incredible book. Okay, first of all, so quick layout components of this book. This book is as a combined progression of two of my previous books, Falling for Truth, which I haven't read, and Exit the Cave, book one. Exit presented that this reality is a type of AI-based simulated matrix created by an evil deity for the sole purpose of harvesting energy to keep the simulation running, right? We talked about that, obviously, in that summary. Falling for Truth was a summary of my 8-year test on the solidity of the world that led to seeing it as an illusion, and my fall into a canyon, which led me to see that I was also an illusion. He does mention the fall in the canyon in this book. A key chapter of each of these books can be found at the following footnote. And probably like you, I have read hundreds of books, yet none I have read can compare to the live and in-person experiences and practices done at the home of Korean monk Boyoung Chul Park and in the sweat lodges of 3 native medicine men, Bruce Starlight, Clayton Bunn, and Dennis McKay. This book is also a progression of what they shared with me. Here we go. You are part of the illusion. I think we can get a big takeaway from this. Seeing Beyond These Hopes was clearly written in many years ago by Gary Harmon's lecture notes from A Visit to Rose. If you accept that all is an illusion without including yourself in that illusion, you have made the classic spiritual mistake. It took the fall in the canyon for me to see through this error. The realization was that the physical, mental thing that I always thought I was is false, as all the rest of reality. However, the canyon experience revealed something that was much more real than I ever thought. And that realness is what I had always been. It was just that the Howdie thing, right? He's Howdie McCoskey, got in my way and got me to forget what I really was. This, I feel, goes back to the idea of self-realization. Sounds like that a little bit from the Upanishads, and that self-realization is realizing that you're the consciousness or awareness behind this entire avatar and this body and this individual that we identify so strongly with. So I think this is getting to the idea of, I hope I'm getting this right, by the way, but I think this is kind of getting to this idea of emptiness and separation. And it also has the same themes of detachment being a part of this journey, if you are on that path to try to eventually escape the matrix. Now, that being said, this is an illusion. We're part of that illusion. Okay. But he also gives this great note. Nevertheless, this experience is still real because it's happening, because things are happening. We're feeling things. We're experiencing things. I also want to be clear that just because I'm describing this reality as an illusion does not make the experiences that take place in the simulation to be meaningless. They have meaning from the standpoint of the character we know ourselves to be, and to the movie called Life on Earth. The joys are enjoyable. The pains and suffering can be horrible. One must see that the sufferings that have occurred in our lives are not some sort of random freak occurrences or happen because there's something wrong with us. That is the concept the Matrix tries to guilt us with, that the suffering of our lives happen because we are some sort of bad person, or that we have terrible karma from a past life. Many traumas, especially early on in one's life, happen because they have been written into our life script by the very beings who later try to guilt us for their occurrence. I've talked about this from Journey of Souls, where we have all these things laid out and written out ahead of time. Not that those things, I'm not sure if those things are necessarily unavoidable, but it does seem as though these different events, positive and negative, are built into our life. It is kind of a conundrum, right? Then we, certain people fall into certain patterns, whether it's drug abuse, whatever it may be. And obviously we have to take, I'm not saying this allows us to skirt all responsibility, but you get what I'm saying? If it's written into your life plan and then you experience these traumas and then it changes you in these ways, should you feel so guilty about things that, right? It's just, anyways, but I think that's what he's getting at. They're building it into the life script and then guilting us with these things that then are the results of these traumatic things. It seems a little perverse. The problem is the entire system in which we are residing in. The problem is the entire system. The guilt should be felt by the Archons and the system, not us. From seeing this can come a great compassion for oneself, the journey we have lived, and can create the formation of real empathy for others who had to suffer similar scripted traumas. I've been thinking about this a lot too. This idea of, forget about even other people, just ourselves for a moment. And this idea of compassion for ourselves, again, self-love, Pink Tourmaline, right? And as much as we talk about it and we try to do it, man, it's just, it's tough. It's tough to not beat up on ourselves for getting things wrong or doing things not the way that we ideally would have wanted ourselves to do things or complete things. The smallest analogy I can think of right now is that I'm getting so into pickleball. Yeah, I was thinking about this today, and I play doubles all the time. I never get upset when my partner makes a mistake. A lot of times I'll jokingly say, "Hey, you," like when they make a mistake and they feel bad about it, I'm like, "Well, you just made me feel better because I messed up a while ago. So now I don't feel so bad. Thank you for that." Kind of joking around, but just trying to make them feel better too. And truly, it doesn't bother me. But when I make a mistake, when it's an easy shot for me and I miss it, man, I beat myself up about it. And I'm like, why am I doing this? You know what I mean? Why am I beating myself up? It's supposed to be a fun game and just enjoy myself. And, I really need to keep that in mind. Anyways, my point is this idea of having compassion for ourselves or self-love or forgiving ourselves to some extent. It's just so much harder than I think we realize. And that's just an example to me because it's just a nothing game, a game that I just love and enjoy so much. And I've been having so much fun with it the past few months, yet it's also a source of beating up on myself. Why? So weird. Only what is true can exit. Big statement here. I will repeat this idea many times in this book. Only that what is true can exit the matrix. Everything false will have to be left behind. Even energy cannot exit the matrix because energy is the core of the matrix, the power for the computer. Energy has nothing to do with the divine spark. So raising your vibration or having a loving, open heart is not exiting the matrix because both are based on energy. Awakening the spark from the coma has similarities to these ideas, but is not the same. When one has the utmost intention to locate absolute reality, liberation is close at hand. But that's one thing he does talk about is this idea of awakening the spark, the divine spark from within us. And that is the key to liberation. When I think he says leaving behind the things that are false, he's talking about the illusion, again, the illusion of us, our identity, a lot of things maybe that we don't want to let go. I'm sure that was 100% true with me. There's so many things that I like about myself that it's hard for me to think that I'm not me, or me is just through this idea of self-realization, this awareness behind me, or this consciousness that's in here. Oh, sorry. But me, the me that I know is not me. It's a tough thing to get my head around, for sure. Awareness alone, right? Just the same idea of letting these things go, getting out of this illusion, and then what will eventually move on. I will end this introductory chapter with some words from the Ashtavakra Gita, a text I will return to in the final chapters. At the beginning, the text states that a focus for stepping out to be free is to shun the experiences of the senses like poison. Turn your attention to forgiveness, sincerity, kindness, simplicity, and truth. Liberation is to know yourself as awareness alone, the witness of all. Abide in awareness with no illusion of person. You will instantly feel free and at peace. Again, same idea. This awareness, this idea of self-realization. This system is built on trauma and suffering. This resonates. It is my belief that this realm today is built on trauma and suffering. Thus, the traumas are not there to teach us anything, New Age idea. Beings are placed in a series of life script traumas starting in childhood to act as a foundation for the future. Original childhood traumas are codes built into one's personal system. From that point forward, depending on how we have shaped our sense of self, the ego takes these first traumas and structures them in such a way that we continue to manifest similar occurrences as our life continues. The life scripts put in place, usually by tricking our soul to agree with them, set the foundation for what comes after. Without such foundations, we would not be creating continuing guilt, shame, and regret, which are the building blocks of the Archon reincarnation trap. So there it is. I think the main idea here is he's saying, hey, look, these life traumas, they're built into us, and then it kind of gets us stuck in the cycle, and then boom, just keeps us locked in to returning via shame and regret. And that's how the whole thing apparently seems to work. I mean, it does seem as though getting out of all this trauma and suffering, man, it seems near impossible when you look around at the world and what's going on and how much abundance we have right now, yet things seem to just be getting worse and worse in so many ways. Now, this is a great section because he's talked about NPCs before. We've talked about them with Intuitive Underground. And this idea is a little creepy, to be honest, but he clarifies here on what he means by NPCs. He kind of changes the terminology from NPCs to automatons. And so I thought it was important to include this section. The discussion of the NPC has been one of the areas of the strongest resistance in the Exit the Cave message. Non-player character. It is important to know that I do not see NPCs as some type of robot, nor do I call them non-human. They are human. They have souls. Very important, at least according to Howdie McCoskey. They can be a good friend, repair a car, help a child with an illness, offer good advice, or be a terrific sex partner. They are just missing a connection to a divine spark. Without that, they lose depth. They will not have the driving curiosity to look into philosophy, nor the need to understand what reality, the self, or death is. They may have a passing interest in these subjects, read a few books, or join some retreats. However, spiraling inward will never happen. Even though they may have been on a 20-year spiritual journey to those who knew them when they began, it may seem like they have not taken a single step forward. I don't know what the nature really is of NPCs, but I like this. That's all I can say, because it weirded me out so much to think that if this is not, I mean, I don't know what the reality is, but if it was that they're simply robots or they're simply almost AI biological entities, it's just, I don't know. It's just weird. It's just hard for me to get my head around. So what he's saying is instead, no, they have souls just like us, but whatever our connection is to the divine spark, that he's saying they don't have it. Maybe it's just severed to a large degree. It's like massively reduced. It's like 5% compared to 95% or 100%, something like that. I don't know exactly. And I don't know if Howdie knows 100%. Maybe this is just his way of describing it. But anyways, that's his clarification on this term of NPCs, aka automatons. Now he has another interesting section. He talks about soulmates and thinking that, hey, this idea, this notion of soulmates and wedlock and all this stuff might be part of the trap as well. And I just found this really interesting because this is something I've thought about a lot as well independently. Now let's move on to what we call two people who become life partners, and even bigger, the idea of soulmates. This was one of the tricks played on the characters in the TV series, that the afterlife was all about spending continuous time with their soulmate. That sounds like heaven, does it not? I think he's talking about, by the way, he spends a lot of time in this book talking about the Good Place, which is a TV show. I didn't include it in my summary. Not everybody's seen it, but it's basically this show. It's a good show. I've actually seen 2 seasons of it, where somebody passes away and she thinks that she's in heaven, and it's called the good place, but she's there on accident, quote unquote. She wasn't supposed to go there. At least that's how it's laid out to her. And she kind of took the place of another person who had done all these good things in her life. And so, but she didn't want to say anything because she's in heaven and she didn't want to go to the bad place. And anyways, it's this whole system to look like perfection in heaven, yet it actually turns out to be hell. And it's actually run by a demon. And the whole point of it is to make them think they're in heaven, but then psychologically kind of torture them with weird scenarios. Anyways, that's what he's referring to here. So he refers to it a lot in kind of likening it to what's happening here on this planet. Okay. That sounds like, so going back to this idea of a soulmate, you go to this afterlife and you spend continuous time with their soulmate. That sounds like heaven, does it not? But what if the whole soulmate idea is another trick, one that gets woven into us at a very young age, especially via modern version fairy tales, where the prince and princess get married and live happily ever after? Do you know of anyone who has lived happily ever after? Of course, few understand that the original tales were not about a coupling of two people in the material realm, but were discussing work for an inner marriage of the male and female halves of the divine spark. Okay, wait, I'm going to come to the next section in a minute, but it relates to this. But I do want to comment on this, that I think there's something here. And I don't mean to say, that this is not an attack on I've had lots of relationships and they're fantastic. This is not necessarily an attack on the idea of relationship or pairing up, monogamous relationships or things like that. But I will say, I mean, these are just observations that I made growing up, just seeing relationships of people around me. It does feel as though, and some of them, but I think it's kind of rare, but some of them do work beautifully. Actually, I have a buddy of mine named Jesse. I've never seen a marriage like his. It is just two peas in a pod. It's incredible. Incredible. And I tell him this. I'm like, dude, I don't know. And he says all the time, he goes, hey, man, there's some things I know, some things I don't know. One thing I know is how to have a good marriage. He's like, that I'm 100% an expert on. And I see it with him and his wife. They've been married, I think, we've been together for 20 years or something like that. It's insane. But you don't see it very often, you know? And these are just things that I've observed. And a lot of times, I mean, obviously, you look at mathematically, you look at the divorce rate. That's obviously emblematic of the fact that most of the time this ideal tends to break down more often than not. And then if you look at even the ones that are still intact, even in that 40% range that don't split, they don't always seem what they're cracked up to be. Sometimes they do. Sometimes absolutely they do. But a lot of times I think there's a lot of strife and a lot of struggle and disagreement. And then there's staying together out of convenience or not wanting to deal with the financial repercussions of splitting up or having kids, and that trauma being put upon the kids. Like, there's just so many things. And I think there's something to this idea that Howdie is bringing up. And again, I think in certain cases, it works perfectly and beautifully. But the fact that it's just pressured upon people, and especially within a certain time frame at a certain age, that you have to find this, and then this must be that person, and then it just works out to not be, and then so disappointment, such disappointment, and so many hurt feelings. And so I kind of get what he's saying. If we just took this expectation out, this built-in expectation that you got to find the one right at this point, and then you got to settle down, and then it's going to all go perfectly, when most of the time it doesn't. You know what I mean? I think how much more relaxed would people be about the whole process of relationships and dating and all these things. So I think he raises an interesting point. That's why I wanted to highlight it. Just food for thought, something to think about. And then he ties it back here with this constant quest for, I think a lot of people get caught up in, for finding a soulmate or getting into a long-term relationship, whatever it may be. It stems from a feeling of being incomplete. But he says why we feel incomplete, we're trying to take that away with the search for a relationship, but it has nothing to do with that, or at least this is according to Howdie McCoskey. The spark within us feels incomplete, which it is. and as such has a natural tendency to find that which will complete itself. The matrix has built in the idea that this incompleteness can be remedied by obtaining an object in the material realm. This search for completeness is generally presented through a relationship, especially finding what is called a soulmate. However, there is no relationship or object that can be obtained in the material world that can heal the inner feeling of being incomplete because it's not a material issue. So the outer seeking continues. Basically, what he's saying is there's something deeper happening here, and we're trying to fix it, but we're never getting to the root. And so it just ends up being this perpetual attempt to fix something that kind of can't be fixed. If again, this theme comes up again, by the way. If we can just fix this, well, right here. So this is the idea of fixing the world, fixing the planet. I mean, how many of us, myself included, have said at various points in our lives, I want to do this because I want to change the world. I want to fix the world. I mean, I do. I still do, I guess. I don't know if I'm still falling in that trap. And this channel is part of me participating in that. But obviously not through the traditional methodologies of I want to go into politics or I want to start this thing or that thing or whatever. Obviously, I'm just trying to see if I can get to the truth of things and share that with people. Anyways, we've all had this thought, and I just thought he puts it very, very nicely. So I want to include this. If we just got some good people, then everything will be okay. Meaning in like political systems or good, just get that one good leader, this, that, things could be better. Few see that the systems themselves are the issue. That is why nothing ever changes. People are working to fix the last layer of the material reality without realizing the totality, which includes various higher levels of interconnected deceptions. As such, hope becomes one of the most insidious traps. That's so messed up, but I think a lot of us that are waking up right now kind of resonates. It's dark, it's sad, because we want to try and fix this world, but maybe it is inherently flawed. These are some of the thoughts that started popping in my head when I first discovered Gnosticism and this idea, the Gnostic idea of what the material world might be. And I looked around, I said, well, man, yeah, you can take all the systems in place, obviously in our world today, and it just seems as though it's meant to be broken. But then even beyond that, if you look at the way that our bodies are designed, the way that we must consume on a constant basis, whether it's oxygen, water, food, killing plants, animals, and just that's built into just daily life. It's like, is this really fixable? Makes you think. But we want to fix it. We want to make things better. That's just in us. I guess that's the divine spark in us. Now, this section, obviously a big topic of interest. How do you get past the Archons? One of the things many NDEs present is that the beings we encounter claim to have some sort of an authority over us, and that one should be in both fear and awe of them. This is likely the main reason one is programmed since birth to respect authority and to never question it. David Icke talks about this. Tony Sayers, I believe, talks about this as well. You don't discuss or deal with these entities. If you wind up in this predicament, you must be rooted in your divine spark. You go past them by dissolving them. And as such, seeing that everything they are and present are manipulated lies, and they have no authority over anything that comes from outside of the matrix. I wonder what he means by dissolve them. You go past them by dissolving them. What does that mean exactly? But anyways, that's the point. Do not give that authority is what he's trying to say. Now, this is a trip. Okay, if you've ever wondered why, we've talked about different people mentioning the idea that energy or loosh is extracted from souls while we're in this material realm, but also after we pass on. And that's also been corroborated by remote viewing accounts as well. So the question that is answered here is, why when people have NDEs, when they pass over, aren't they harvested a bit? Why are they kind of given this love and light presentation and then sent back? So you got to keep going. You got to keep living your life and doing your things. It's not your time yet. Why? Well, this is apparently why, according to Howdie. The first question on the whole examination is, given the ancients were not presenting the after-death world as one full love and light, what might this realm be? Many have asked why souls in the standard NDE are sent back to the earth experience. For of this is a realm just for loosh energy harvesting, then the Archons should be eating the souls as soon as they arrive in the NDE. Why send them back to the material at all? Miss Anagnosto, this is the author of a book, and I can't remember the name of the book, but he mentions it, gives a suggestion that is real food for thought, in quotes, in these two chapters, that she claims souls are sent back into a body because their energy is not tasty enough. Just as we wait until a piece of fruit is ripe to take it off a tree, they do the same thing with us. The soul's astral body needs more desires, passion, sacrifice, or more of the nice and happy energy for the upper classes of the entities. So apparently, when people have these NDEs, I guess there's more to do and more to extract and more to harvest later down the line. I mean, we do call it harvesting. We do call it a farm. So maybe this is an apropos analogy. And who knows, maybe that energy or that loosh grows exponentially the longer we live. So it's extremely important that if they can get us to come back for another 10, 20, and this is just pure speculation, but if they can get us to come back for another 10, 20 years, it's probably very much in their interest if it does increase in some sort of exponential fashion as opposed to linear. Love is also part of the loosh system. You guys may have already heard this or been exposed to this line of logic, but we often think that it's the negative energy and negative emotions that seem to be highest on the list for loosh generation. But love apparently is also part of it. Love only really exists when there is nothing that required a second to project love upon. This is kind of interesting because this does line up with some of the stuff that Darius J. Wright has talked about in terms of no love not having any conditions placed upon it. This is not what people are experiencing on Earth, in which love is a chemical reaction. Schopenhauer was very clear in his concept of the will, that we will become attracted to another person and get a strong emotional feeling and have sexual relations to make babies, which will cause us to feel attached. And he's talking about basically love on this planet between a man and a woman, or whatever, you know what I'm saying, between two people. Have sexual relations to make babies, which will cause us to feel attached, so that we will then take care for those babies, so that we'll safely grow up to have sex and make new babies and keep the slave circuit running. I know everyone wishes this love thing to be more since it feels so nice, but it is part of the energy loosh system. That does not mean one has to get rid of it, but to see it for what it is and don't add importance upon something that is another part of the matrix as a whole. Interesting food for thought. Actually, by the way, I kind of misstated the main point of this at the beginning. It's not that he's saying here that love is also consumed, but he's saying that love is, or the feeling of love, or how we describe love in this realm, is again part of the trap, because it basically kind of say is like the lubricant of the engine of the loosh farm. You know, it keeps it moving, it keeps it flowing, it keeps more bodies being available to be inhabited. Interesting point. I love this. This resonates hard with me, especially a lot more lately too, as I've been reading more and learning more. And yeah, this idea of saving ourselves, like we have to be the one to step up. We can't look to somebody else or a savior, this and that. So this is his message here. This message is important from Sioran, for the underlining message is that the great father, if one does exist, is not going to save us. We have to save ourselves. A Christ figure, whoever and whatever that may have been, came here to show that an exit is possible and what is needed to be done. They are but a pointer to lead us to see that we are our own true saviors. These famous religious figures act more like coaches to show us how we can go past our limits. We save ourselves. It just resonates so much with me. I really do think there's massively something to this. And by not embracing this reality, we immediately put ourselves at a disadvantage. Immediately looking to a savior, this person or that person or this entity or that entity, it just takes power away from us. And it's everywhere. It's everywhere on this planet and in this reality. Now, this is pretty mind-blowing, the way that he presents leaving the cave or exiting the cave here, because he says it's not about exiting. So what does he mean? Let's listen. This is why I've come to say that the task is not to exit the matrix, for the pathway is not really a physical one, nor is it some labyrinth that gets navigated in the astral, which I sometimes have thought. What we do is to become like a poison to the matrix by becoming complete truth. That even though the matrix needs us for power, once we access the true power from the pleroma again, and if you're unfamiliar with pleroma, that's from Gnosticism. It's kind of the realm, I guess you could say, the original realm with the original source of the divine spark. It has no other choice but to expel us. And by using the word expel, I'm also symbolically saying expel, as in removing the spells that put us in the original coma. We become that which Albert Camus was pointing towards in his essay, The Myth of Sisyphus. The only way to deal with an unfree world is to become so absolutely free that your very existence is an act of rebellion. The end result will create a being that will be impossible for the Matrix to keep. The Matrix gets sick and tired of having you around and basically spits you out. Somebody else was asking about this in the comments. Why would the Matrix or the system or whatever this realm is, why would they want people that are waking up and all this stuff to keep coming back? They wouldn't. Well, I think this is kind of his idea that he's explaining here, is that, yeah, it wouldn't want us to keep coming back. It'd be a liability, or it would get sick of us, however you want to explain it, and boop, it would remove you. Another interesting section. We've all been talking about the light. Don't go into the light. How do we avoid the light? Talks about it right here. We bypass the white light trick by never making it to the white light. Right? How do you avoid getting punched in the face? Don't get into a fight. Just avoid the fight. And that does not happen by wishful thinking, faith in the Savior, becoming a really nice boy or girl, or even learning every possible yoga posture. It comes through a realization of emptiness. Okay, here's where I am going to try to pay very close attention, because this part is a little bit over my head, but I'm going to do my best. You stop needing a savior when you realize that there is no one here to be saved. Okay, again, so I think he's going into this idea, the illusion of self. Lucifer gets tired of trying to keep forcing no one to believe that they are someone. No one is dangerous for a system designed on falsified projections. Believing the projections and themselves are very important. Thus, oddly, after a long chapter all about what might be the most correct after-death experience, of course, the correct answer is there will be none. So he's saying you can bypass the whole system if you acknowledge this truth of emptiness, which to me sounds like detachment from everything that we kind of look at as ourselves in this realm. I had to share this because this hits me hardest of all. It's not about adding things. And part of his message here is that, you know, people that are out there searching for answers, reading this, watching that, it's me basically right now. He does later say, though, there's some element of this that's important, but eventually that's to come a point where you have to look within. So this is what he says. A key starting point is to overcome the misplaced idea that a path to knowing is about adding things. The belief is that I don't know enough. I mean, this is me right now. I don't know enough, so I need to go to another course, read another book, watch another video. Oh, my God. Yeah, we have all the answers we need within. It is just that they have been covered over with all sorts of belief walls. Well said. The majority of the early path is removing the walls that is covered over the link to inner answers. I think it was William Bowman that said beliefs are blocks. Woo! That's a good one. I think he's saying the same thing. Richard Rose was the first to put this in easy to understand terms, describing the work as a path of finding false and then dropping it, then go looking for more false. We do not walk forward to truth since we do not know for sure what it is, true, but travel backwards as we drop false. Ooh. That's hitting me hard right now. Right? Drop false. Focus on dropping false as we identify falsities. Drop those. Because I'm saying, like, I can take this advice. I'm looking for truth right now, but I don't know what it is. So it's kind of like a proof by contradiction in mathematics. You know what I mean? So we discount things and then we drop them, and that by stripping away the false, we can get to the truth. Very interesting. That didn't hit me as hard the first time I read it, but now it's hitting me hard. Eventually, we come to the one thing that no matter how much we try to declare it as false and drop it, we cannot. That is the truth. Wow. And as everyone who has come to it has suggested, it is nothing like they ever expected it would be. Okay, another interesting section. Look, I can't speak to this. I've always thought this was important, is what I'm trying to say. I'm not speaking about this from an authority, like a place of authority per se, in terms of how having your life in order necessarily merges or melds with going on this quest and journey and self-realization and all this stuff. I can't say I can't really say, hey, I know the two are important and must coexist together because, it's not, I'm still learning all this stuff. I'm still brand new to it. That being said, I've always felt that having your life in order to some degree is important because it just clears your mind up to be able to look into this stuff, to be able to search for truth or strip away the false, as he just previously said, and have your life in order on multiple accounts. And this is what he talks about here. So I thought this was really important for people to hear. If one is not healthy in the body, for example, then that will take up a lot of our energy just for healing. And that energy is then not available to a deeper search. How can we find more health? Do we need to change our diet, to lose weight, to gain muscle, to learn qigong or yoga, or see an acupuncturist, herbalist, or doctor? It's not exiting the cave stuff per se, but the more healthy the body becomes, the more energy we have available for putting towards our ultimate commitment. Tony Sayers talks about this as well. Doing inner work, being physically fit, being healthy. A house in order also means to have one's basic needs covered, or one will always be scrambling, full of anxiety about if they have food to eat or a place to live. That would also take up much available energy. This is not a call to be rich or powerful or even to have a long-term address. It is knowing what enough is for you, so not have anxiety around basic needs. We simplify our life, but do not ignore the basics. He also talks about healing your traumas in the same vein. When one is healed, or better said, to have transformed their traumas and balanced their mind, they will be in a place to operate with clarity and apply their pathway in a rational, healthy way. If you feel that your mind is not in a stable, calm place, if traumas are still infusing your system, that is where you have to begin. You have to find qualified help to turn an unstable mind into one that can be clear and stable. A therapist, psychologist, or energy healer is not going to take you to exiting the cave, but they might help you get through a wall that you need to see through in order to keep moving. Great advice. Part and parcel of this too is if you have toxic people, I imagine, in your life that are holding you back or causing you so much trauma or anguish that you can't shift away from them. That would be, I think, something to think about as well. Obviously, he didn't talk about that specifically, but I think sometimes that can be trauma occurring in real time because of an attachment or a connection to a particular individual. Oh, I love this section. He talks about the importance of integrity. And again, this goes back to that video that I made not too long ago, which I think people should really watch. It's about the idea of discernment basically being tied to truthfulness in our own lives, honesty, integrity. And this integrity that we carry within our lives, building up our discernment, our ability to know what's true versus what's false, which is what we're going to need in spades according to this paradigm as we pass on. So he talks about the importance of integrity, and I feel like it's along those exact same lines of the concept of phronesis. There was a couple other terms of art that I can't remember off the top of my head, but that were included in that video that basically described the same principle. When it comes to integrity, is a word that is rarely used in our modern technological society. Integrity tends to have two usual definitions: the quality of being honest and having strong moral principles, and the state of being whole and undivided. The first part is the word honesty in it. Firstly, this means to be honest to yourself and not to do things that you know are not in your best interest. And I love that. I love that. Be honest, obviously, to other people and your pets too. I think that should be included, but also to yourself. Because it's easy to lie to ourselves. Sometimes we don't even know we're doing it. Or, well, I think deep down we know, but no level of external pressure or temptation will get one with integrity to act in ways they know are against their principles. I would add three other words that go into the idea of integrity, those being fairness, reliability, and courage. Like all this I agree with them so much here. If you ask a person with integrity to come and help you at 7 p.m., they will be there at 7 p.m. You don't even have to wonder if they will show up or if they will cancel. I've thought about this. You make a promise to somebody. You say you're going to be at a place at a certain time. If you don't, you've lied. I mean, you've obviously lied to them. You've lied to yourself, or you tell yourself, "I'm going to go to this one thing today," and then you make up in your mind, "Hey, I'm going to do this," even if nobody's necessarily counting on you. You're compromising your integrity, and that may not seem like a major deal, but I do think there's something to this internally. Like, you feel that, and that could have a ripple effect in your discernment and different things. I'm not saying if you're all of a sudden getting sick and you made an obligation that you can't back out or something, if you need to rest, right? But I think there's really something to this idea. They will do what they have said they will. They will be fair with people. Yes. They will have boundaries and not allow others to push against them or be unreasonable, but they will take into account circumstances and look for solutions that offer value for all involved. Yeah, boundaries are important. Sometimes it's tough for me, but they will also show courage to stand their ground for what they believe or take actions that follow their principles. Just to be able to say no in some cases takes great courage. Yeah. And integrity has a great amount of empathy. We learn to share what we can of it with other creatures in the world, not trying to save everyone or everything, just offering little bits of help and encouragement when we can. We cannot save every suffering animal, for instance, but can we help one? This is all linked to in the world integrity, right? Some of these things I feel as though I'm doing, I'm aware of and I'm doing pretty good with. I think I'm trying my hardest, and some of these things I need to work on. I mean, I think that's probably the same with all of us, different things where, man, I'm not maximizing myself in this particular area, or but I am over there, right? Just a lot of things to think about in this paragraph that I think we know deep down are important. Um, Maybe not always why, but I do think we maybe that's the divine spark, but we do know that this stuff is important and it matters. And now this brings some clarity as to potentially why. Okay, now we're gonna get in to the deep stuff. As I take a drink of my LaCroix, I'm gonna try and do my best to explain this very, very important idea of emptiness, but I might eventually need Howdie on here to help me fully understand this. Okay. And this is it's quotes here because this is him having a conversation, I believe, with his editor. I can't remember for sure, but I think so. I laugh. I don't think it would. Emptiness is not the exit door, but it is the mat you wipe your dirty feet on before going through. The dirty feet are the beliefs we have had about ourself and this reality. So emptiness is not the exit door, but it is the mat you wipe your dirty feet on before. Okay, so you're getting rid of the beliefs and perceptions and whatnot. Emptiness is the realization that helps us begin to scrape off all the mud that has been stuck to our shoes. Detachment, I think, is what he's saying. I've said many times, only something can be trapped in a false reality. Nothing cannot be trapped by anything. That being said, nothing or no thing is not better or different than something. There are two sides of the same coin. That is the whole Buddhist nirvana is samsara idea. No thing is revealed when one negates something. They fit together. Just our whole lives, we have had 100% focus on the something side, which is why one needs a big dose for a while of the nothing side to balance it all out. But just as you don't want to get stuck in something, you don't want to get stuck in nothing either. Okay? That is where the work of betweenness begins. When we put our awareness between the two and see what gets revealed. The problem is this idea that nirvana or emptiness is the final goal. It is just the flip side of how we normally experience things. Both something and nothing have to take their place as equal yet useless at the same time. Okay? Awareness is in between the something and the nothing. And so it is that awareness or general consciousness, and you're zooming away kind of in the middle. You're acknowledging both, and and you don't want to get, but you don't want to, you're not completely divorcing yourself from the something. Maybe it sounds more like you're observing both, but without attachment or without trying to connect with, yeah, that whatever those perceptions are, or those beliefs, I think. And then why not so I think that's what it means. Basically, not just ignoring it or not focusing on no thing and just getting it out of your consciousness completely, but just observing it is maybe what he's getting at. Okay, so this is the fictional character referring to himself or ourselves. The realization of emptiness is not the same as the merging of the divine spark with the fire. What I classify was originally meant by the term enlightenment. Emptiness is the realization that comes first because we need to be shaken out of the solidity and importance of the world of something. Part of this realization is to see how much of our energy during our life has been invested in a fictional character, me. After the realization of emptiness, if one integrates and follows where it leads, it allows the energy to be rerouted to the spark. So part of this hold on, let me read that again. Emptiness is the realization that comes first. Part of this realization is to see how much of our energy during our life has been invested in. Okay, so the first part is how much of ourselves got maybe wrapped up in this character and in this role. And then after we have this realization, we then follow where it leads, and then we can maybe reconnect or strengthen our connection perhaps to the divine spark. I think that's what he's saying. And then when it comes time to exit, I think I did mention this point somewhat earlier. Only our awareness exits. That's all we get. That's all we get to take, according to Howdie Mikowski. Is exiting the cave really what you want? Because nothing that you currently believe yourself to be is going to make it. Awareness will make it, but not you. That is where all this is going, and is why once grace starts to get close and push against all the areas that someone is grasping to, things begin to feel uncomfortable. It is at this point that the average person finds anything that will make all the tension and pressure stop. Again, they think this is scary to see that the body mind they have identified with their entire life is just a projected actor. Yeah, it is scary. I'll agree with that. It has a function and a focus, and we learn to navigate with it rather than against it. We appreciate the character, root for him or her, get the best of our character can attain. But after full realization of emptiness, we no longer classify ourselves as the thing we see in the mirror. We know we are vast, and at the same time, no thing. This reminds me a little bit of when Bob Monroe talks about the idea of us getting addicted to life on this planet, and hence wanting to keep coming back and say, oh, well, this was a great life, but I never lived in Paris. I never went to Paris. I want to come back again and now live in Paris. I want to whatever. And again, not exactly the same, but this idea of just wanting to be this attachment to Earth. And this feels along those same lines of this attachment to ourselves and this role and this person that we see in front of the mirror every day. And yeah, that's kind of, I think what he's saying is that is part of a trapping system that can keep us stuck here. Okay, but now if you're saying, oh my God, so the emptiness, we have to completely divorce ourselves from ourselves and that's it, the person that we are, we just boop, they're gone. Not exactly. Emptiness does not delete us. The realization of emptiness, or the awakening of the divine spark, is seen by the regular mind to be quite an achievement. It tries to package anything that someone claims of importance to be an achievement. It's not. Realizing emptiness is the simplest thing, crossing the gateless gate of Zen. Yet, crossing a gate that does not exist will require a massive effort, the result of which will be that there will be nothing of you left on the other side to get any benefit. The end of the search comes with the end of the seeker, and it has to be seen to be believed. We stop being Joe as who we are, but we continue to borrow Joe for worldly interactions and finding what actions will be of help to the journey of the divine spark. The realization of emptiness does not change that there is a character in a world. So like, we're still here. It changes the actions and motivations of the character, because now you're acting on behalf of the divine spark, not all the wants and needs of Joe or Huzefa or whatever it may be. Are we meant to end suffering on this planet? Again, coming back to the idea that, wait a minute, that that notion could be getting us enmeshed more in this trap that might be actually part of the trap, because maybe this is just a fool's errand that can't be done. The main goal is not to end suffering, as suffering will likely still take place in the matrix, as it is part of the entire basis of distortion this realm is built on. What you are doing is ending the cycle of suffering lives for the deeper awareness, ending the cycle of suffering lives for the deeper awareness that you are. Ending of the reincarnation cycle. That happens when the main direction of our focus is no longer what happens in this realm, but what happens in that more real realm. But to get the taste of that realm is going to come with the lead up that can be very challenging. In my case, it caused me to question everything I'd ever thought of who and what I was. Okay, last excerpt, and I wanted to include this because I thought this was very important. Now, the word that I blotted out is, I'm not going to say it because I believe YouTube has an issue with this word, but it is basically leaving this planet by intention, okay, by design, by doing something, and not sort of living your life, if that makes sense, right? Leaving early. And I thought this was very important because we're talking all about this stuff, about it being a trap and this and that. And you might think, well, that's maybe what I should be doing. No. And Howdie explains, I already felt this. I felt this was probably the case. And Howdie explains it right here beautifully, I think. This is why doing that thing offers no value of escape, as it is only the death of the physical body. Though it does not end the current experience of suffering. It does end the current experience of suffering, it does so without the totality of the work being completed. So the soul will just continue the recycling into additional suffering bodies. Suffering will just continue in a different outer form. Thus, we have to use the time available in our current material life, no matter how challenging and difficult it is, to keep up with our work of self-definition and understanding. Hence, we use another day to see and drop one more bit of false to hopefully reveal a bit more of what is true about us. Doing this thing will not help that process. While we are not afraid of death, we are not afraid of death should it come to us, as it will come. We cannot stop it, but there's no need to bring it sooner than it needs to be. We make time a friend. We see what happens by using it a bit differently than the masses use their time. And I thought that was a nice message to end on, an important message to deliver, but one that hopefully we end on and it really sticks with you guys. That's it. That's the first half. I think it's great so far. And I do think it's very important. If I am going to have a meaningful conversation with Howdie McCoskey, he is 100% right. I had to read this. The first book was amazing, but this one definitely goes in some unique directions. Obviously, it all ties together, but it definitely goes in some unique directions that I think are very important if I want to have a substantial conversation with him. I think it's important that I read this and see all the new bits of information that he's presenting. So that's it. That's all I got for you guys in this video. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. What did you think of all the information presented herein? What do you think? Are you going to now run out and get this book? I recommend it. And I'll be back with part 2 later this week when I finish the second part and organize my presentation and do all that. So we will be back. Thank you guys so much for joining. We'll see you in the next video. Take it easy.